Drumroll please, the top 10 most nutrient-dense foods, working our way from number 10 all the way to the most nutrient-dense food in the world are mustard greens, parsley, garlic, radishes, turnip greens, chard, watercress, coffee, garden cress, and I have to leave number 1 to the end of this video, not only because it's shocking, but also because the YouTube gods demand it. They just love it when you watch my videos all the way to the end. But before we get to number 10, let's explore numbers 10 through 2 and the nutrients they contain that make them so nutrient dense. The 10th most nutrient dense food is mustard greens. They have a Nutrivore score of 5,464, largely thanks to delivering 240% of the daily value of vitamin K, 87% of the daily value of vitamin C, 22% of the daily value of manganese, and 21% of the daily value of copper per 2-cup serving measured raw, plus a whack load of important phytonutrients like 610 milligrams of glucosinolates, 6,200 micrograms of carotenoids, and 413 milligrams of polyphenols. Fun fact, mustard greens are also commonly known as Chinese mustard, Indian mustard, brown mustard, leaf mustard, mustard spinach, and vegetable mustard. The 9th most nutrient-dense food is parsley. Parsley has a Nutrivore score of 5,491, thanks in large part to delivering 205% of the daily value of vitamin K, 22% of the daily value of vitamin C, and a large amount of carotenoids, nearly 1,600 micrograms in a mere 1/2 cup serving, measured raw and fresh. You know what I just realized? I probably should have started with a review on how we even measure nutrient density. Better late than never, let's do that now. The Nutrivore score is a measurement of total nutrients per calorie. It's a tool to identify the most nutrient-dense options within each food group and food subgroup to help inform our day-to-day choices. I did a whole video on the Nutrivore score, how it's calculated, the science that it's based on. But as a quick review, the Nutrivore score is calculated as the sum of 33 nutrients relative to their daily value and then divided by the energy density of the food. By dividing the amount of each nutrient by its daily value, we're putting the amount of the nutrient into the context of how much our bodies need. And by dividing by the energy density, the amount of calories in a serving, we're converting a sum of percent daily values into a measurement of nutrients per calorie, i.e. a quantification of nutrient density. One of the consequences of this calculation is that low energy density foods, like all of the foods in this top 10 list, don't need to deliver a ton of nutrients in order to have really high nutrients per calorie. On the flip side, very high energy density foods have to deliver an enormous amount of multiple nutrients to boost their nutrient density scores even a little bit. For example, walnuts are jam-packed with biotin, vitamin E, copper, manganese, and healthy fats. But because they also deliver 183 calories per 1 ounce, their Nutrivore score comes out at a middling 303. But what's cool about this top 10 list is these are all foods that deliver both a lot of nutrition and have low energy density. So lots of nutrients per calorie and per serving. And if you're enjoying this list, you will love my top 500 Nutrivore foods ebook, which you can find in the shop on my website. The 8th most nutrient-dense food is garlic. Garlic has a Nutrivore score of 5,622, thanks to being the most concentrated food source of a class of phytonutrients called thiosulfonates, with 81 milligrams in a tiny 1 tablespoon serving. That's about 3 cloves. In addition to delivering 6% of the daily value of vitamin B6 and manganese, and 3% of the daily value for copper and vitamin C. Fun fact, during World Wars I and II, garlic was used to prevent gangrene, which was effective thanks to its antimicrobial properties. The 7th most nutrient-dense food is radishes. Radishes have a Nutrivore score of 5,863, largely thanks to containing a whopping 586 milligrams of glucosinolates in just a 1 cup serving measured raw, plus 19% of the daily value of vitamin C, 16% of the daily value of biotin, 7% of the daily value of folate, and 6% of the daily value for both copper and potassium. Fun fact, radishes are one of the easiest vegetables to grow and the quickest to harvest. In fact, the scientific name for their genus, Raphanus, comes from the Greek meaning quickly appearing. Some varieties can be ready to eat in just 4 weeks. The 6th most nutrient-dense food is turnip greens. They have a Nutrivore score of 6,370, thanks to delivering 230% of the daily value of vitamin K, 73% of the daily value of vitamin C, 71% of the daily value of vitamin A, 43% of the daily value of copper, 53% of the daily value of folate, 22% of the daily value for both manganese and vitamin E, 17% of the daily value for vitamin B6, and 16% of the daily value of calcium, all in a 2-cup serving, again measured raw. Oh, and 811 milligrams of glucosinolates, and a huge 21,000 micrograms of carotenoids. That reminds me of a joke. Why were the strawberries so upset? Because they were in a jam. And they weren't in the top 10 most nutrient-dense foods. I hope that mom joke earned your subscribe. The 5th most nutrient-dense food is chard. Rainbow chard has a Nutrivore score of 6,573, and a 2-cup serving, again measured raw, delivers an incredible 498% of the daily value of vitamin K, plus 24% of the daily value of both vitamin A and vitamin C, 14% of the daily value of both magnesium and copper, 11% of the daily value of manganese, an impressive 950 milligrams of polyphenols, over 10,000 micrograms of carotenoids, and 4.2 milligrams of another cool class of phytonutrients called betalains. Chard is actually a type of beet cultivated for its tender, earthy, flavorful leaves at the expense of root formation. So when it comes to leafy greens, you might say that chard can't be beet. Get it? Because it's a type of beets? Moving on. The 4th most nutrient-dense food is watercress. Watercress has a Nutrivore score of 6,929, and a 2-cup serving measured raw delivers 142% of the daily value of vitamin K, 32% of the daily value of vitamin C, 12% of the daily value of vitamin A, plus 65 milligrams of glucosinolates, 710 milligrams of polyphenols, and over 5,000 micrograms of carotenoids. Throughout history, watercress has been used in traditional medicine across many cultures, and it's purported that Hippocrates chose the location of his very first hospital based on being close to a stream where watercress grew. I've got good news. The 3rd most nutrient-dense food is coffee. Coffee is such a concentrated source of polyphenols with 623 milligrams per cup, while only containing 2 calories if you're drinking it black. And that's why it has such an incredibly high Nutrivore score of 7,036. You also get 14% of the daily value of biotin and 10% of the daily value of vitamin B2 per cup of coffee. I'll do a whole video focused on coffee at some point, but the great news for coffee lovers is that a wealth of scientific evidence shows that drinking coffee in moderation, which is up to about 3 cups per day, reduces risk of type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, some forms of cancer, gout, gallstones, depression, and a variety of liver diseases. You might say there's sufficient grounds to suggest there's a lot of health perks to drinking coffee. I'll see myself out. Okay, this is what is so cool about the Nutrivore score calculation. I would never in a million years have guessed that these would be the top 10 most nutrient-dense foods. Here are some other fun surprises from the Nutrivore score calculation. Strawberries are actually about twice as nutrient-dense as blueberries, and cantaloupe melon has about double the nutrient density of honeydew melon. Iceberg lettuce is more nutrient-dense than artichoke, celery, or cucumbers. Dark meat turkey is slightly more nutrient-dense than light meat turkey. And beef liver and kale have about the same nutrient density. And the biggest surprise of all, the top most nutrient-dense food is... Oh wait, we're actually at number 2. The 2nd most nutrient-dense food is garden cress. Garden cress has a Nutrivore score of 11,265. A 2-cup serving, measured raw, delivers 452% of the daily value of vitamin K, 303% of the daily value of copper, 296% of the daily value of manganese, 175% of the daily value of magnesium, 96% of the daily value of zinc, 77% of the daily value of vitamin C, 38% of the daily value of vitamin A, 26% of the daily value of iron, 24% of the daily value of calcium, 20% of the daily value of both vitamin B2 and folate, 17% of the daily value of potassium, 15% of the daily value of vitamin B6, 13% of the daily value of both biotin and phosphorus, plus 1,070 milligrams of glucosinolates, 77 milligrams of polyphenols, and over 16,500 micrograms of carotenoids. Wow. Garden cress is harder to find in grocery stores in North America, but it is very easy to grow as a microgreen at home. Okay, we're finally there. The top most nutrient-dense food is canned clam liquid, aka clam juice. How does canned clam liquid earn its chart-topping Nutrivore score of 14,744. A 1 cup serving only has 5 calories, making it a very low energy density food. But it also delivers an impressive 500% of the daily value of vitamin B12, 104% of the daily value of copper, 22% of the daily value of phosphorus, 18% of the daily value of selenium, 8% of the daily value for both manganese and potassium, 6% of the daily value for both magnesium and choline, 5% of the daily value for vitamin E, and 4% of the daily value for both vitamin B2 and iron. Now, if you're going to incorporate this into your diet, note that it can also be high sodium, so make sure to look for low sodium options. Also, please do not start a trend of drinking clam juice. Instead, think clam chowder, linguine with clam sauce, or clamato juice. This top 10 list was very fun, but I am not suggesting that you always just choose the highest Nutrivore score foods to eat. Instead, the best way to use the Nutrivore score is to identify the most nutrient-dense options for each component of your meal, among the foods you like, have access to, and can afford. For example, cantaloupe is the most nutrient-dense type of melon among the common varieties that you're likely to find in the grocery store. It has a Nutrivore score of 457. Strawberries are not only the most nutrient-dense berry, but actually the most nutrient-dense of common fruits found in most grocery stores. They have a Nutrivore score of 762. And for example, oysters are the most nutrient-dense type of seafood, and the most nutrient-dense variety of apples is Granny Smith's. So think of simple swaps and additions that you can make to your meals to up your overall nutrient intake. And remember that on Nutrivore, there are no foods you have to avoid, but also no foods you have to eat.